This CU podcast segment is sponsored by NordVPN. It's what I use to keep myself safe online, and you can too. If you care about the security and safety of your online presence, take control of your internet experience today with NordVPN. I've used NordVPN when traveling, anywhere where there's public Wi-Fi, restaurants, hotels, a cafe, a diner, or if I just want internet privacy at home, it's good to use there as well.
And NordVPN has got you covered with thousands of fast servers in 60-plus countries, no data logging, up to 6 simultaneous connections, 24/7 customer support, and an automatic kill switch, military-grade encryption, and it uses double data encryption for increased anonymity.
Take control of your internet experience today with NordVPN. And right now, take advantage of a limited-time holiday deal. Get 68% off a 2-year plan plus 4 months free. Go to nordvpn.com/CU podcast or use code CU podcast at checkout. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And it's a great gift for the holidays. I can be like, hey, Ian, for Christmas, I got you internet privacy. I know, it's fantastic. That's nordvpn.com/CU podcast. Get the holiday deal before it ends. All right, Ian, this was a weird rumor, which I don't think is true, but you know what? It's a light week.
It's a light week.
We're pulling back the podcast curtain here. It's a light week. We're going to talk about this. So it was a rumor that Nintendo was thinking about bringing Game Boy games to Switch Online, but that included not just regular Game Boy, but Game Boy Advance, which is like 2,000 freaking games in the Game Boy Advance library. It's ginormous. So it's interesting that they would go in that direction. I don't know, but I would prefer to see some of the older Game Boy games first. I don't know, Ian, what do you think? Would there be a market to bring the Game Boy Black and White and Game Boy Color stuff to the Switch?
So I would like to think that there would be a market for it. Sure.
You would cry if there was not.
I would like to think that there's a market for it. And I think that there are plenty of games on the Black and White Game Boy that are probably worth revisiting, even if people haven't played them before. Put the Mario platformers that were on the Black and White Game Boy out there. Super Mario Land is fantastic. Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins is really good. Super Mario Land 3 is the first Wario game, which is also very good. The Kirby and the entries in the Kirby series, as simple as they are, I think are worth people seeing. And then obviously the Game Boy and Game Boy Color Zeldas.
I was going to say all the Zelda games, yeah,
are worthwhile. The original Metroid 2, the Kid Icarus sequel that most people forget about that was on the Game Boy is really good. We actually just covered that over at Yokoi Kids a couple months ago, and it's a fantastic game. There are a lot of games on the original Game Boy that I think would be good to have available, not just for preservation and because of the history that they can show you, but because they're actually still very fun games to play. But if there's one thing I've learned, and it has certainly made me feel old, with how Nintendo is doing their digital distribution, is that there is a lot more younger eyes on these services now than there would have been, maybe 10, 15 years ago.
During the Wii when the virtual...
Right. And I forget that. With every day that goes by, I'm not getting any younger. I'm getting older, and time is marching on. And, a large chunk of the game-playing population that is now, primed with money to make these buys and play these things, they don't have the huge interest. And we saw that with the Nintendo when Nintendo put the original NES games on the Switch. A lot of people not knowing what the games were, or just not really having the
respecting
interest.
Not having like, wow, I don't want this stuff. And when they announced the further ones, I saw the reaction like visceral, like, what are these shitty games? When I wanted to punch them, like, these are good games that you just never heard of. Like, these are good games.
I didn't feel quite as violent.
I did.
but I wish I could get those people to try them, but I also understand that it's just not...
They were treating them like Pong and Atari 2600 games. It was like, I understand this is what you're used to. They're not that primitive. Like, I know this isn't like a get off my lawn thing, but like, those games, like Kirby's Adventure is not a primitive game. Like, even like Zelda 2 is not a primitive game.
No.
You can enjoy these things. There's worlds built into them.
So I saw a lot of people saying, they were more interested in seeing the Super Nintendo stuff, or they wanted Super Nintendo stuff and then they got it and they wanted to see the Super Nintendo. They were more excited about the Super Nintendo games that were coming out.
I saw people pissed at that. I saw them say, well, I want GameCube and N64. Like Super Nintendo's old now.
People are never going to be happy.
Oh, yes.
So with the Game Boy, I think that there would be some interesting stuff to bring out, but I think that people's focus would immediately start pushing towards
the
Game Boy Advance. And
Sure.
The Game Boy Advance is similar to the Super Nintendo in terms of its output and its power. And I think that there's a lot of good stuff on there that people would like to see. A lot of good RPGs and things. Series that Nintendo hasn't touched in a while. I think people would like to see the Golden Sun games, the Advance Wars games, the Fire Emblem games that have not been re-released that are getting fairly expensive on the Game Boy Advance now. And then even some of like the weirder stuff that Nintendo published at the time that you don't see anymore, like Drill Dozer and things like that. So I think there's a lot of good stuff that could come to a virtual console / subscription service for the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. But I think they would be smart to focus mostly on the Game Boy Advance.
I think they would charge for a lot of the Game Boy Advance stuff because a lot of those games aren't even. I mean, God, some are only like 15 years old. They're not super old. The problem with the thing about the Game Boy, and I spoke about it with someone recently. The Game Boy, at least the black and white, even to the color, has become almost like the lost Nintendo console. It's almost like, well, we don't really reference it too much going forward. We don't really do retrospectives about the stuff for the most part. We remake the games here and there, but we rather remake the games that even sell you the Game Boy games again. We'll just remake the Zelda Game Boy game. We won't sell that to you again anymore. And it's almost like Nintendo doesn't see an advantage at all to that first generation of Game Boy stuff for whatever reason. They don't see the value there. Obviously, stuff like Pokemon, people would love that stuff on the online. Like they would love, like that. That would satiate most people. Just
Nintendo already did that on the 3DS. You can get. I mean, there are Game Boy games that you could buy through the Virtual Console on the 3DS.
Sure.
Burger Time Deluxe is one of them.
I'm just thinking about what are the Game Boy games that people would think, oh, this is worth it, or it's just a bonus. Because at this point, you have Switch Online. What is it, $20 a year for Switch Online? It's a value there to begin with. You get the bonus games you can play there. You can get stuff like Super Mario to play and Tetris Online Battle Royale and things like that. So at what point, I always said that they should do a tiered system. That would make sense. If they don't think they make money, all right, well, at $30 you get these sets of games. It's like a cable system. Like that, I think people would be down for that. You get these games, plus this is the base games, and you get this for $5 more or whatever, $10 more. I think that's the way to go for some of this stuff. But for some reason, they seem really reluctant for the Game Boy in particular. Very reluctant to sort of go back to that well. Maybe they think, oh, people don't like this stuff. Maybe they see the reaction to even the NES stuff. It's like, well, if people think this is about NES games, what are they going to think about some of these early, Game Boy titles? Maybe they will think they're too primitive. I don't know. But it's interesting how it's sort of been lost here to some people.